You trust it. You pay for it. You believe it's cleaner, purer, and safer than the tap water in your kitchen. But what if the bottle of water in your hand is simply a dangerous marketing illusion? For years, the American public has been told that bottled water is the cleanest, healthiest choice, a lifestyle upgrade we grab off the shelf without thinking twice. Curiously, many of the companies pushing this very message are the same corporate giants behind fizzy and sugary drinks. While they love to present themselves as the guardians of our hydration, it's clear the nation's well-being is not exactly first on their priority list. Few people realize that American cities were once filled with free public water fountains. They weren't luxuries. They were public health tools, symbols of civic pride and daily essentials. Yet today, you can walk through entire cities and not see a single working fountain. Local governments deprioritized maintaining them because bottled water was now everywhere. This decision created the perfect opportunity for private companies to step in and seize control of a public necessity. Free infrastructure, overnight, turned into a revenue stream. Today in the US, the absence of fountains, especially in airports, train stations, and major city centers, leaves millions of people with no practical choice but bottled water. Convenience becomes the biggest driver of sales, and the industry knows it. Some would say the bottled water industry has conned us, and they are laughing all the way to the bank. Here's the biggest irony. For a product marketed as pure and premium, science keeps finding something deeply unsettling. Microplastics are constantly being detected in bottled waters. Most of these particles come directly from the bottle and cap materials themselves, the PET plastic. Microscopic fragments break off due to movement, pressure changes, or simply opening and closing the lid. The very container designed to protect your water can shed tiny fragments into it, all while many premium brands are happy to sell you half a liter of water for sometimes $3. Per liter, that can be twice the price of gasoline in some states. This is one of the biggest markups in the entire food and beverage industry. We are going to look at 5 major bottled water brands in the United States, their claims, what they actually offer, and why consumers are questioning them. Dasani. Dasani's fundamental secret lies in its origin. It is not sold as natural spring water, but is instead sourced from public water supplies, that is to say, tap water. The production process is complex from an industrial perspective. Reverse osmosis. The sourced water goes through a high-tech filtration process known as reverse osmosis. This completely strips the water of the vast majority of minerals, salts, and contaminants. Mineral reintroduction. After purifying the water, nearly all minerals are gone, and the water has a flat taste. It is at this stage that Dasani adds a special blend of minerals, including potassium chloride, magnesium sulfate, and sodium chloride, to restore flavor. The benefit is that the RO process drastically reduces all sorts of contaminants that could be in the water, even chlorine and heavy metals. This makes the water reliable to drink, even when sourcing from places with questionable quality. The shortcomings lie in the process itself. Loss of mineral value. RO water is completely depleted of beneficial minerals, calcium, magnesium. The added minerals are purely for flavor restoration, not fully restoring the natural water's biological value. Industrial illusion. The biggest shortcoming is the consumer illusion. You think you are buying expensive, clean water, but you are actually buying finely processed tap water treated by industry. Dasani's marketing focuses not on its production process, but on the ideas of cleanliness and refreshment. They call the water purified water. This term serves to prevent the consumer from knowing the water comes from pipes, not a spring, without outright lying. The bottle's thin, clean design is a tool to hide its industrial origin. You are visually buying purity, but source-wise, you are getting a modified version of your local community water source. Dasani's history is marked by several serious scandals in the US and international markets. The UK fiasco, Dasani's biggest scandal, took place in the UK in 2004. Coca-Cola launched the brand with a massive campaign, but consumers discovered the water source was London's Thames tap water. The scandal deepened because the level of potassium bromate in the water was above the acceptable norm. Consequently, the brand was completely withdrawn from the market, marking one of the biggest marketing failures in bottled water history. Potassium chloride taste. Within the US, consumers have complained about Dasani's taste for years. Some describe it as salty or metallic. This taste is the result of the potassium chloride added to restore flavor. This mineral gives an unpleasant, bitter taste in high concentrations. Are you still tasting that flavor today? Aquafina. If Dasani was the pioneer of industrial purification, Aquafina is its twin, presenting the same landscape under a different name. This PepsiCo product is also sourced from the public water supply, just like its rival. They don't just pass the water through an RO filter. They meticulously clean out even the residual minerals, labeling it as pure. This complete stripping of the water allows the producer to create a perfectly uniform, stable taste everywhere in Texas, New York, or California. This kind of industrial control over water's purity ultimately gives us a product far removed from nature. The industrial benefit of RO purification is clear: a clean, stable product. But the process has a drawback for the consumer. The water's essence is removed. Aquafina, like its competitor, adds minimal supplements like ozone or magnesium sulfate to restore the taste after purification. These additions are simply to fill the void in the water. The most unsettling part is that every time a consumer opens the bottle, they are drinking not water, but a laboratory-processed liquid. If you believe the mineral content of water is important for health, Aquafina's purification process sacrifices precisely those beneficial elements. Aquafina's marketing is presented not just as clean, but as perfectly clean. Their blue, frosty packaging and minimal logo create the illusion that this water comes from clean mountain glaciers. However, they shy away from advertising the industrial purification process. The biggest marketing trick is concealing the source on the label. For years, Aquafina noted its public water source in tiny font on the back of the label, while the entire focus on the front was on pure industrial purification. In 2007, PepsiCo was under immense public pressure. NGOs and consumer activists demanded that Aquafina more clearly indicate on the label that it was simply tap water. Consequently, PepsiCo was forced to replace the small print on the label with larger font, adding the words PWS, Public Water Source. This admission proved to the American public that while they thought they were buying expensive premium water, they were actually getting ordinary, filtered tap water. This scandal is one of the clearest examples in the bottled water industry of a lack of transparency. Nestlé Pure Life. If the first two brands sold the illusion of industrial purification, Nestlé Pure Life brings up a larger source of concern: the issue of corporate water usage. Nestlé presents this water as purified water, but their source selection has always been controversial. They often source water from local municipal sources, lakes, or surface waters. Like Dasani and Aquafina, this water is filtered through reverse osmosis, stripped of all minerals, and then minimal additives are mixed in to stabilize the taste. While Nestlé Pure Life's production method technically cleans the water, its biggest shortcoming is the lack of environmental responsibility. For example, in some US states, Nestlé has been criticized for operating in areas that have been facing water shortages for years. Nestlé Pure Life's marketing has always been built on the idea of reliable for the family and pure life. The water drop and blue colors in their logo instill a sense of simplicity and trust. The biggest marketing trick is the generalization of its source. They do not deny being purified water, but they are not quick to disclose exactly which regional source, which lake, or which municipal well the water is drawn from. This is done to create an association of cleanliness and natural source in the consumer's mind. Nestlé's bottled water business has been at the center of public protests for years. Water permit disputes. The company has faced fierce criticism in many US states, such as Michigan and California, for continuously renewing its water extraction permits from local communities. Community activists consider Nestlé's activities unethical, especially during periods of drought. Tap water admission. In 2006, Nestlé was forced to admit, following a legal petition, that the water of some of its brands was simply purified tap water. This admission further deepened consumer concerns about the difference between spring water and purified water. Nestlé Pure Life is an example of how corporate interests are prioritized while offering minimal value to the consumer. Poland Spring. Poland Spring builds its entire marketing on the claim of 100% natural spring water. This, unlike the artificial laboratory processes of the previous brands, conjures up images of nature, cleanliness, and the peaceful landscapes of Maine's forests in the consumer's mind. This water, according to the brand's claims, is naturally filtered through underground formations and bottled directly from the source with a rich mineral content. There is no need for purification. Only minimal filtration and ozonation are performed. The biggest concern Poland Spring creates for consumers stems precisely from its designation as spring water. To be called natural spring water, the water is required to flow from underground by its own natural pressure. However, this brand has repeatedly faced claims in lawsuits and investigations that some of its water sources are simply from dry wells or underground reservoirs. These claims suggest the water is extracted using pumps, not natural pressure. If these allegations are true, the consumer is not buying spring water, but simply groundwater, which is entirely contradictory to the romantic naturalness presented by the marketing. Poland Spring's marketing trick is to use the terms heritage and nature. The forest landscapes of Maine on the label and historical claims emphasizing the brand's operation since 1845 create the illusion that this product is not just water, but a piece of history. They convince us to buy a pure, rooted product, far from the industrial coldness of Dasani and Aquafina. However, the difference between the words on the bottle and the reality creates a sharp sense of betrayal in the consumer. Poland Spring's history is mainly marked by legal disputes. The brand has repeatedly faced class action lawsuits, including one in 2017. Plaintiffs claimed the brand engaged in false advertising and misrepresented the water's source. The court proceedings proved that the water's natural spring water status was seriously questioned. Another criticism involves the brand extracting water resources in Maine beyond the needs of the community. Especially during drought periods, the use of large volumes of water for commercial purposes increases local residents' concerns about the depletion of their water supply. This shows us that naturalness can simply be a marketing tool. Fiji water. Fiji water distinguishes itself in the market with exotic luxury and a pure island origin. The brand claims the water is filtered through volcanic rock from an underground aquifer in the Fiji Islands. This process gives the water a unique, rich mineral profile, particularly silica. Fiji sharply separates itself from US tap water-based brands, creating an image of purity, remoteness, and untouchability in the consumer's mind. Fiji water's biggest shortcomings are not in its chemical composition, but in its environmental cost and economic absurdity. This water is shipped from the other side of the world to market shelves in America. This represents a massive carbon footprint. The consumer, instead of buying local, safe water, makes a choice that is more harmful to the planet and more expensive, simply for the sake of brand image. This is the clearest example of unnecessary luxury in the water industry. When paying a premium price for water, a large portion of this cost is actually going toward the bottle itself, transportation, and marketing. Fiji's marketing begins with its square bottle design. This shape was created to stand out from other bottles and emphasize its premium status. The exotic flowers and landscapes on the label transport the consumer to a tropical paradise. The biggest trick is convincing the consumer that they are buying not just water, but a piece of an elite lifestyle. However, this luxury presentation uses PET plastic. This means that even in this expensive water, there is a risk of microplastic shedding, just like in other cheap plastic packaging. Fiji water has faced criticism both in the US and internationally. Although the brand has tried to demonstrate its environmental responsibility for years, with claims like water goes back to local. The volume of global transport and plastic waste overshadows its efforts. Critics argue that shipping water to a country that has good tap water is ecologically unjustified. In 2006, New York Magazine challenged Fiji Water's purity, claiming to have found more contaminants in the water than in other brands. This dealt a serious blow to the brand's purity claims. Consequently, Fiji had to prove that its waters regularly meet EPA standards. However, this scandal left a doubt in the consumer's mind that expensive water is not necessarily pure. The 5 brands we investigated today, from the illusion of Dasani's tap water to the environmental cost of Fiji, all show us one truth. The primary product of the bottled water industry is marketing, not water. We are not claiming that any brand here is illegal, but the ecological and economic costs hidden behind the production methods, packaging, and origin should compel us to think twice before buying any bottle. We are simply laying the available facts and years of consumer complaints transparently on the table. It is now clear that these corporate giants will not voluntarily make our choice easier. They will continue to sell convenience to us as an expensive illusion. So how can we, as individual consumers, escape this game? The solution is simple, and it's already in your home. Tap water in many parts of the United States undergoes quality testing and is reliable. The real upgrade is a one-time investment in a high-quality filtration system, such as an activated carbon filter or under-sink filtration. This will clean out the chlorine taste and any residue from the pipes, providing you with better, unlimited, and environmentally responsible water than bottled options. Eliminate the biggest risk factor, microplastics. Use stainless steel or glass reusable containers to carry your water. This reduces the risk of microplastic shedding while also saving money. If you absolutely must buy bottled water, look for brands sold in glass packaging and those that have undergone minimal purification, avoiding the reverse osmosis RO process. And now for the main point. What are your thoughts? Which alternatives do you personally use? Perhaps you have other risk-free water brands you can recommend to us? Be sure to share in the comments. How useful was this video for you? Did you know that Dasani and Aquafina were tap water based? Will learning the truth affect your choice? Remember, every comment you leave can help another person make the right choice. If this investigation provided value to you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Ingredient Index channel. Deep investigations like this require significant time and resources, and your support is crucial to our mission. See you in the next investigation. Drink safe and high-quality water